Talking about here on my channel right now. It's all about Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's.
Hi besties, I am Zuriyata Bashan Lashari with Core Venta. Today we should discuss.
Alright folks, let's break this one down. Because what started as harmless fan speculation about a rekindled friendship between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively has now turned into one of the most dissected celebrity fallouts in recent Hollywood memory. It's Friday, rush hour. The news cycle is bursting, and while everyone's eyes are on world events and pop culture headlines, one particular update has Swifties reeling. Taylor Swift has allegedly gone no contact with Blake Lively. And yes, the reports are coming right from Taylor's side, or more precisely, from a source close to Taylor, which in Hollywood terms usually means exactly who you think it means. The drama, of course, ties right back to the Justin Baldoni lawsuit, the It Ends With Us chaos, and some deep fractures of trust that seem impossible to patch. Let's rewind and trace how we got here, because this isn't just another celebrity tiff. This is the unraveling of what used to be one of pop culture's most beloved celebrity friendships. When Taylor Swift dropped her latest album earlier this year, fans went wild dissecting lyrics, visuals, and Easter eggs, the way Swifties always do. Among the many theories swirling online was that Blake Lively had quietly contributed or inspired parts of the project. Blake even gave the album a public like on Instagram, a small digital gesture, but one that set the fandom ablaze. People thought this was a sign of reconciliation, that maybe the old dynamic duo, the one who used to laugh together on red carpets and share holiday dinners, was back in sync. But then, just as fast as that like appeared, it disappeared. Blake unliked the post. And that was all the confirmation the internet needed to assume something deeper was brewing beneath the surface. Because in the world of modern celebrity, where every emoji and social media action is an encrypted message, that unlike was the equivalent of a door quietly shutting or slamming, depending on how you read it. Then came the reports. Taylor Swift has had no contact with Blake Lively since the Baldoni situation began. To anyone just tuning in, this whole mess started when the It Ends With Us production became the epicenter of chaos, with accusations flying between Blake, who is starring and producing, and Justin Baldoni, who is directing. The film became the subject of leaks, alleged manipulation, and a legal battle that blurred the line between creative dispute and outright war. Somewhere in the middle of all this, Taylor's name got dragged into it unwillingly by all accounts. Some sources claimed Blake leveraged her friendship with Taylor to gain more influence behind the scenes. Others whispered that Taylor's team felt Blake was using her name for power. Then came the legal bombshell. Brian Friedman, Baldoni's attorney, hinted that Taylor's father had accused Blake Lively of trying to extort Taylor Swift. Now, that's where things go from messy to downright explosive. Think about it, we're not talking about gossip column speculation anymore. We're talking about a claim serious enough that a top Hollywood attorney referenced it as part of an official narrative. If Taylor's family believed that Blake had used the friendship as leverage, or worse, that she had tried to manipulate the pop star's influence for her own professional benefit, that's not something Taylor could just brush off. Taylor Swift is famously protective of her inner circle. She doesn't let people in easily. And once that trust is broken, it's over. That's her whole philosophy. Loyalty is everything until it isn't. So here's what reportedly went down. Once the Baldoni lawsuit exploded publicly, Taylor pulled back. The no contact began quietly, no grand announcement, no subtweets, no unfollows, just silence. And that's classic Taylor. She doesn't wage wars online. She communicates through action, through subtle moves, song lyrics, and sources who speak off the record, but always say just enough to get the message across. It's what one insider called her version of plausible communication. She never confirms, she never denies, but somehow, the world always ends up understanding exactly what she wants to say. Now, some of you might be thinking, maybe this whole thing is exaggerated, maybe it's just gossip blogs twisting stories. But then Page 6, a publication that's basically the loudspeaker for celebrity PR chess moves, published a piece saying Taylor and Blake have not spoken since last winter. That's nearly a year of distance. According to their source, the friendship ended quietly as the Baldoni case unfolded. That one line set off alarms in entertainment circles. Because when page 6 says something like that, it's rarely an accident. That means someone in Taylor's orbit, likely a manager, publicist, or family member, wanted it out there. And that in itself tells us everything we need to know. Taylor Swift is not a celebrity who lets narratives run wild without direction. She's built an empire on precision, from tour logistics to public statements. So if a story like Taylor Swift has gone no contact with Blake Lively makes it into the media and stays there unchallenged, that's not coincidence. That's message control. That's Taylor's subtle way of saying, yes, this is real, and I'm done. What makes this even more fascinating is how sudden the collapse appears to be. These two weren't casual acquaintances. Taylor and Blake were close. We're talking family-level close. Their kids played together. Ryan Reynolds and Taylor had their own friendly dynamic. Taylor even used Blake and Ryan's children's names in her songs, a level of intimacy that's almost unheard of in celebrity circles. Blake once called Taylor and Ryan her Khaleesi and dragons, an over-the-top but sincere way of describing loyalty and power. So what happened? How did something so tight-knit fall apart so completely that they're not even speaking? According to people close to the situation, it all boils down to trust and the use of Taylor's name during the Baldoni chaos. See, when Blake reportedly leaned on her relationship with Taylor to strengthen her side of the internal conflict, that crossed a line for Taylor. It wasn't about publicity. Taylor's used to that. It was about integrity. Taylor has spent years fighting against people who've tried to manipulate her fame for their own gain. Record executives, ex-boyfriends, fake friends, you name it. She's built her reputation on maintaining creative and emotional independence. So when someone inside her inner circle, someone she once called family, was accused of using that connection in a power play, it hit deep. And from that point on, according to insiders, there was no repairing it. One of the more bizarre pieces of this puzzle was how fans initially thought Taylor was quietly defending Blake when she stayed silent during the Baldoni lawsuit's media explosion. But as time went on, the silence started looking more like strategic distance. When Baldoni's camp revealed that Taylor's name had come up in legal contexts, her team went into lockdown. No comments, no posts, no endorsements, nothing that could tie her to the narrative. And if you know Taylor Swift, that silence is the statement. She doesn't need to tweet. Her absence speaks volumes. It's also worth noting that this isn't the first time Taylor's handled things this way. She's done it before with Karlie Kloss, with certain producers, with industry insiders who crossed her boundaries. When she cuts ties, she doesn't announce it. She just disappears from that person's world. No more sightings, no more mutual tags, no more references. And that's exactly what's happened here. Now, let's talk about why Taylor's team would confirm, even quietly, that the friendship is over. Because usually celebrity teams avoid words like no contact. They prefer phrases like growing apart or taking space. No contact is deliberate. It's final. It's boundary-setting language. And that's why fans are interpreting it as more than just a breakup between friends. It's a declaration of independence, a quiet way for Taylor to reclaim her peace after months of being dragged into someone else's legal and PR mess. The whole thing also reveals something fascinating about the modern celebrity communication system. Gone are the days when stars made statements through tabloids directly. Now they speak through whispers, sources, and tiny social media movements. A like, an unlike, a quote tweet, all of it becomes part of a coded conversation with fans. Taylor has mastered that art better than anyone. When she unfollows someone or refuses to acknowledge a rumor, it becomes global news. And that's precisely how she maintains control of her narrative. She doesn't let chaos dictate the headlines. She reclaims them through absence. Meanwhile, Blake Lively, for her part, has stayed mostly quiet too, but insiders claim she's been trying to soften the optics, liking neutral posts, showing up at events with her husband, and subtly projecting stability. But fans can sense when something's off. There's a chill between the two, and even casual observers are picking up on it. What used to be playful public interactions are now completely gone. Blake and Ryan didn't attend any of Taylor's era's tour stops after the fallout, something that would have been unimaginable 2 years ago. For a friendship that used to thrive on public affection, that silence is deafening. And here's the thing. It's not that Taylor hates Blake. By all accounts, she's just done.
She's moved on.
Taylor's world right now is focused on stability, her music, her engagement, and her core circle of trusted friends who've stuck by her through every high and low. She's in what one insider described as her maturity era, where she no longer needs to maintain connections that bring stress or confusion. And in that sense, this isn't a feud. It's a detox. Taylor isn't retaliating. She's retreating. Still, that doesn't mean the fandom's done analyzing every move. When the Page 6-piece dropped, social media lit up with split reactions. Some fans mourned the end of an era, the playful double dates, the jokes, the mutual admiration. Others applauded Taylor for setting boundaries, especially after the Baldoni scandal. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. You don't mess with Taylor Swift. She's kind until you cross her. That sentiment echoes across much of the entertainment world. Taylor's reputation isn't built on petty grudges, it's built on lessons. And if this friendship ended because of manipulation or misplaced trust, it's just another chapter in her ongoing evolution from people-pleasing to power-holding. It's interesting, too, how Blake's public image has subtly shifted since the fallout. Industry chatter suggests that her reputation as a collaborator has taken a hit. Some describe her as difficult or controlling, though her fans argue that she's simply assertive and ambitious. But that line is razor-thin in Hollywood, especially when gender politics get involved. A man asserting control is called a leader. A woman doing the same is called bossy or toxic. Still, the It Ends With Us debacle left a dent, and with Taylor stepping away, it's like the industry's perception of Blake became even more polarized. There's also this sense that Blake underestimated how much influence Taylor actually has, not in a manipulative way, but in a cultural sense. Taylor doesn't need to say anything for her absence to shift narratives. The moment she's no longer in your corner, people notice. Her silence acts like a foghorn. And that's why this no-contact story feels so heavy, because it's not just about a friendship, it's about a power dynamic shifting quietly in real time. The irony, of course, is that both women are masters of image management. Both built careers on understanding how the public perceives them, Taylor through lyrics and fan engagement, Blake through brand partnerships and carefully crafted interviews. They both know the value of silence and the danger of saying too much. Which is why this stalemate, this public quietness, is so fascinating. They're both holding their cards close, but everyone can see there's tension behind the curtain. Now, if you zoom out, this story also says something broader about how fame functions in 2025. We're in an age where personal and professional lives are completely intertwined. A friendship between two megastars becomes not just a relationship, but a brand partnership of sorts. Fans attach identity and loyalty to it. So when it fractures, people take sides, read meaning into every gesture, and treat it like a public referendum. That's why this isn't just gossip. It's a microcosm of how fame operates now. Every move is PR, every silence is strategy. In the end, Taylor's decision to distance herself isn't about drama. It's about control. After years of being misunderstood, manipulated, or taken advantage of, she's learned to prune her circle. Whether it's a romantic partner, a producer, or a best friend, if someone breaches trust, they're out. Not with fireworks or feuds, just quiet, deliberate removal. It's a move that might look cold from the outside, but for someone who's lived under a microscope for 2 decades, it's survival. And let's be real, it's also part of what makes Taylor such a fascinating figure. She doesn't just make music, she lives her life like a narrative arc. Every choice, every silence, every subtle shift becomes part of the mythology. The Blake Lively story, in that sense, isn't a scandal, it's a new chapter. The era of boundaries. The era of self-protection. The era of saying no contact not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Alright, so we've already unpacked how Taylor Swift quietly distanced herself from Blake Lively after the It Ends With Us controversy blew up and the Justin Baldoni legal war dragged both their names into the same chaotic orbit. But what's happened since then? And why has this story refused to die down? Because here's the thing, this isn't just another celebrity rift or a recycled Hollywood feud. It's actually a case study in how one of the world's most powerful women, Taylor Swift, handles betrayal, crisis management, and personal reinvention all at once. We're now deep into what insiders call the no-contact era, and the way Taylor has executed it is almost surgical in precision. Every silence, every absence, every word not said is part of a controlled narrative. And the more you look at it, the more you realize this is about something bigger than just friendship. It's about how modern power operates in Hollywood's shadow economy of influence. So, let's start right where we left off. Taylor Swift has gone completely no contact with Blake Lively. No texts, no calls, no public sightings, no mutual likes, and definitely no collaborations. But unlike the usual Hollywood fade-outs that come with vague statements like, "We've grown apart," this one's been defined by deliberate silence. Not defensive, not emotional, just controlled quiet. It's the kind of quiet that makes the industry uncomfortable because it's not chaos, it's composure. And that's what makes it powerful. When someone as globally visible as Taylor Swift chooses not to address something, that absence becomes its own kind of presence. It lingers. It creates tension. It invites speculation but denies closure, and that's exactly what keeps the conversation alive while keeping her image untarnished. Now, on the surface, you might think that silence equals avoidance, but in PR strategy, silence can actually be the strongest move you can make. Think of it like this. When you're Taylor Swift, every public word is amplified, dissected, and weaponized. If she said anything directly about Blake Lively, it would become a viral feeding frenzy. But by saying nothing, she keeps control. She removes fuel from the fire, while still letting the smoke tell its own story. That's not passivity. That's precision PR. And that's exactly what her team, led by her longtime publicist Tree Payne, has mastered. According to insiders, Tree's been the one quietly guiding this no-contact rollout, making sure the story unfolds in a way that reinforces Taylor's maturity, emotional intelligence, and refusal to engage in drama. You'll notice that the leaks never paint Taylor as petty or vindictive. Instead, they frame her as protective, focused, and selective about her circle, a woman reclaiming her peace after years of betrayal. That's not accidental. That's how you shape public perception through narrative architecture. And make no mistake, Taylor Swift's PR game isn't just reactive, it's strategic storytelling. Every era she's had, Reputation, Lover, Midnights, The Tortured Poets Department, has been both an artistic and reputational chapter. This fallout, whether she admits it or not, is part of the next one. Let's talk about timing. The Page 6 article confirming the no contact didn't come out randomly. It landed right between two major moments in Taylor's schedule, the Era's tour film re-release announcement and her global tour expansion. That's not coincidence, that's control. You time stories like that when your brand momentum is so massive that no amount of bad press can overshadow it. It's what PR experts call strategic cushioning. By placing a controversial headline between two massive successes, you make sure the narrative surrounding it bends in your favor. Fans see the news, but they process it through a filter of triumph. Taylor's thriving. She's unbothered. She's just setting boundaries. And that's exactly the takeaway her team wants. Meanwhile, on Blake Lively's side, things look a lot less controlled. Since the lawsuit drama, her PR presence has been scattered. One week she's doing fashion partnerships. The next she's defending herself against veiled comments online. She's projecting confidence. But insiders claim she's frustrated by how she's been framed as the manipulative friend, the opportunist, the one who crossed the line. She's reportedly even told friends she feels betrayed by how cold Taylor's silence has been, because to her, it feels like abandonment. But that right there is the paradox of celebrity friendship. When you build relationships in a public space, the dissolution of those relationships also becomes public property. And in that space, perception becomes reality. Now here's where things get deeper. The no-contact story isn't just about emotional distance. It's also about narrative detox. Taylor has spent the last decade cleaning her image from every form of manipulation, from the Kanye feud to the Scooter Braun Masters scandal, to her political and creative autonomy. Each one of those battles was about control. So when the Baldoni lawsuit surfaced and Taylor's name got tangled into it through no fault of her own, it represented a threat, a reputational landmine that could explode at any time. And the moment her team realized Blake's involvement in that chaos wasn't clean, that's when they hit the brakes. Fast. Because for Taylor, proximity equals endorsement. Even if she didn't speak publicly, being seen with Blake while that scandal unfolded could have been read as approval, and that's a risk Tree Payne was never going to allow. Behind closed doors, people familiar with the situation say the call was simple but serious. Taylor didn't rage or rant. She just told her team, "We're done. No more communication." And once Taylor makes that kind of call, it's final. She doesn't do half measures. She's not interested in temporary breakups or public reconciliations. She cuts clean. And that's part of why her inner circle is so small and loyal, because everyone in it knows that once you're out, you're out. Not out of hate, but out of necessity. But what's really fascinating is how this no-contact phase has changed the tone of Taylor's public presence. She's sharper, calmer, more deliberate. The social media posts are rarer, the statements more curated, the appearances more meaningful. It's like she's in total control of her energy, and that's resonating with fans who've watched her evolve from chaos magnet to chaos controller. In a weird way, this whole situation has boosted her public image. She's now being seen as the ultimate boundary setter in an industry built on exploitation and blurred lines. The girl who once sang, "I'm a nightmare dressed like a daydream," has now become the woman who simply says nothing, and somehow, that's louder than any lyric she's ever written. Now, let's zoom in on how this silence functions strategically. Taylor's PR model is built on asymmetrical communication, meaning she rarely communicates directly, but the ecosystem around her constantly reinforces her narrative. Think about it. Her fans, her media allies, her brand partners, all subtly echo her positioning without her needing to speak. That's the brilliance of her media ecosystem. You can trace this pattern all the way back to 2016. Remember when she disappeared after the Kim-Kanye feud and then came back with Reputation? Same formula. She didn't defend herself. She let the silence build tension until she could reclaim the story through art. And this time, the no contact with Blake is operating the same way. She's letting everyone else talk while she stays focused, because in the end, the public will only remember her comeback, not the conflict. Meanwhile, the ripple effects are fascinating. Sources say several of Taylor's mutual acquaintances with Blake have quietly chosen sides, and most of them chose Taylor. Not out of blind loyalty, but because in Hollywood, aligning with integrity and stability is the safer bet. Blake's world, by contrast, has become more insular. A few of her collaborators reportedly pulled back, especially after the legal noise surrounding her film projects got louder. And that's the hidden consequence of crossing paths with someone like Taylor Swift, not in a vengeful way, but in an atmospheric one. Taylor's silence creates a kind of social gravity. The industry naturally orbits toward her, not because she demands it, but because her steadiness is magnetic in an industry addicted to chaos. Let's also acknowledge the gendered double standard at play here. When male celebrities set boundaries, it's called professionalism. When women do it, it's called being cold or cutting people off. But Taylor's rewriting that script in real time. She's proving that you can be compassionate and firm, empathetic and selective. Her no contact isn't a weapon, it's self-preservation. And that's something her fans, especially women, deeply resonate with. The idea that you can love someone, support them, and still decide they no longer have access to you. That message has become part of Taylor's brand evolution, from victim to survivor to self-author. But what's really interesting is that Taylor's silence toward Blake has started influencing the way other celebrities handle similar situations. We're seeing more and more stars, from Selena Gomez to Zendaya, adopting the quiet distance method. No subtweets, no drama, just slow detachment. That's Taylor's influence in full effect. She's set a new precedent for emotional maturity in public life. In a world addicted to reaction, she's made non-reaction the ultimate flex. Of course, not everyone's buying it. Some insiders claim the whole no-contact narrative is exaggerated, that Taylor and Blake were never that close to begin with, and that this is just the internet projecting friendship mythology onto a professional acquaintance. But those claims don't hold up under scrutiny. The history's there, the family dinners, the kids' names and songs, the public praise. This wasn't PR, this was personal. And that's exactly why it stung. When a surface-level connection fades, no one cares. But when a deep one dissolves, it reverberates. And that's what we're witnessing here. Another interesting detail that's been floating around. Reportedly, Taylor's team has a do not mention policy now when it comes to Blake in interviews or press releases. It's a quiet but firm directive. Avoid the topic altogether. That's how Hollywood signals that something's over without ever needing to say it. If a publicist tells a journalist, "We're not commenting on that," the subtext is clear. That chapter's closed. That's the level of boundary we're talking about here. But you know what's wild? Even though Taylor's silent, her fanbase is doing all the storytelling for her. The Swiftie network is one of the most powerful digital forces on Earth. They track patterns, analyze lyrics, decode imagery, and whether intentionally or not, they end up reinforcing the narrative Taylor wants amplified. It's like an organic PR machine that works in her favor. Fans are now interpreting several songs from the Tortured Poets department as reflections of betrayal and disillusionment, not necessarily romantic betrayal, but friendship-based betrayal. Lines about trust broken under spotlight, someone selling secrets for screen time, and friends who talk like foes are being reinterpreted through this new lens. Whether or not those songs were actually about Blake doesn't even matter. Perception makes it real. Meanwhile, in traditional media circles, there's quiet acknowledgement that Taylor's version of crisis handling has become the new industry standard. Even brand executives have started referring to it internally as the Swift model. It's basically the idea that the best damage control is not control at all. It's curated silence paired with overwhelming success elsewhere. In other words, don't fight the fire, just shine brighter than it. And that's what Taylor's been doing flawlessly. While everyone else talks about Blake, Taylor's breaking records, selling out tours, and reshaping global pop culture. The scale of her success makes the drama look microscopic. That's not just a win. That's obliteration through elevation. There's also an emotional layer here that's easy to overlook. People assume Taylor's calculated in everything she does, but those who know her well describe her as deeply empathetic, almost too empathetic. When she goes no contact, it's not coldness, it's heartbreak turned into self-discipline. She doesn't ghost out of spite, she detaches out of necessity. Because for someone who feels everything so intensely, staying connected to betrayal is like bleeding slowly. So she doesn't argue, she doesn't explain, she just stops showing up. And that, in its own way, is one of the most human responses there is. If you connect all the dots, the Baldoni fallout, Brian Friedman's legal comments, the page 6 confirmations, the quiet scrub of social media connections, you see a very clear arc, Taylor Swift protecting her empire. And not just her professional empire, but her emotional one too. She's built a life so guarded, so curated, that every person around her is vetted through layers of loyalty and intention. And in that world, one wrong move, one hint of exploitation, and you're out. It's not vindictive. It's survival instinct for someone living under the kind of scrutiny she faces. So where does that leave Blake Lively now? Professionally, she's still thriving. She's got endorsements, films, and brand deals. But the narrative shadow of the one who lost Taylor's trust will follow her for a while. And in Hollywood, perception is currency. No matter how talented or beautiful you are, losing alignment with someone as universally admired as Taylor Swift shifts the gravity around you. You stop being the protagonist, and you start being the side note. That's the unspoken power Taylor holds. She doesn't destroy people. She just walks away. And in doing so, the silence becomes its own kind of storm. So as the headlines fade and new rumors emerge, what remains clear is this. The no contact between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively isn't about hate. It's about evolution. Taylor's not interested in revenge. she's interested in peace. She's not canceling anyone, she's cleansing her environment. And in a world where celebrity culture thrives on noise, she's teaching a masterclass in the power of restraint. Because here's the truth, silence isn't weakness. It's dominance, disguised as indifference. And Taylor Swift, once again, is proving that sometimes the loudest move you can make is to say absolutely nothing.